Picture a rain-flecked promenade in 1961, the smell of salt and hot fat drifting from a steamed-up café window. Inside, for a few shillings, you could eat like a king on food made that morning by hands that knew your name. This is the countdown of the 25 foods every old British seaside café served before the tourist traps, the plastic menus, and the frozen everything ruined the coast forever. Which lost classic tops our list? Let's begin with number 25. Number 25. Cockles in vinegar were the first taste of the seaside for generations of day trippers. Scooped from a wooden barrel into a little paper dish, doused in malt vinegar and dusted with white pepper, they cost only a few pence and were eaten standing on the front with a tiny wooden fork. The cockle sheds of Lees-on-Sea and the stalls along Southend shifted them by the barrow load, fresh from the estuary mud that very morning. Children screwed up their faces at the briny snap, then went back for a second dish. Fathers washed them down with a mug of tea while the wind whipped along the prom and the gulls circled overhead. For working families down from London on a bank holiday, a dish of cockles was the sea itself. Cheap, honest, and gone in a minute. Today, the few sheds that survive sell mostly to tourists, and the everyday ritual of a penny dish has all but slipped beneath the tide. Number 24. Winkles on a pin with a fiddly little treat that turned a Sunday tea time into a small event. Sold by the half-pint from stalls near the pier, these tiny sea snails arrived home in a twist of newspaper, still smelling of the shore. The ritual was everything. Each winkle was coaxed from its shell with a pin or the point of a hat needle. The little black cap flicked away, and the morsel dipped in vinegar before it vanished. It took patience and a steady hand, and grandmothers were masters of it, working through a saucer full while the children fumbled and dropped theirs on the floor. A pint cost only a few pence, a treat even the tightest household could manage. Oral histories from the East End and the South Coast recall front rooms full of quiet concentration, a pin in every hand. Today, Winkles have all but vanished, too small, too slow, and too humble for the modern seafront. Number 23. Potted shrimp carried the taste of Morecambe Bay to café tables the length of the country. Tiny brown shrimp were boiled, peeled by hand, then sealed under a layer of butter spiced with mace, nutmeg, and a whisper of cayenne, set firm in little pots that kept for days without a fridge. Spread thick on hot toast, the butter melting back to gold, it was a supper that felt like luxury, but cost the price of a loaf. The shrimpers of the bay worked the tides before dawn, and by lunchtime the pots were on the counter of every seaside tea room nearby. Diaries of the 1950s recall the sweetness of the shrimp against the salted butter, a flavor no factory could copy. Yet the peeling was slow, and the shrimp grew scarce, and as convenience took hold, the little pots retreated to specialist delis. What was once a cheap seaside staple is now a delicacy few children have ever tasted. Number 22. Whelks divided the promenade as sharply as any food on this list. Sold from steaming stalls beside the pier, these large sea snails were boiled until firm, then served by the saucer with nothing more than a shake of vinegar and a shake of white pepper. The texture was the test. Chewy, rubbery, unmistakably of the sea. Whelks separated those who loved the coast from those who merely visited it. A saucerful cost a few pence, and for dockers, fishermen, and day trippers alike, they were a cheap hit of protein eaten on the hoof. Stallholders on Brighton front and along the Essex coast worked shifts through the summer, the pot never off the boil. Children dared one another to try them, and the winners wore the achievement like a badge. As tastes softened and the stalls made way for burger vans, the whelk quietly disappeared. Today it survives only where a stubborn stallholder refuses to let the old seafront die. Number 21. Jellied eels wobbled onto cafe plates as the pride of London's coast-bound families. Eels caught in the Thames were chopped, boiled with vinegar and bay, then left to set in their own glassy jelly, served cold in a bowl with a spoon and a slick of chili vinegar. The pie and mash shops that lined the routes to the seaside carried them, and no proper day out was complete without a bowl. The flavor was soft, savory, faintly fishy, the jelly cool against the tongue on a hot afternoon. A portion cost only a few pence, making it the affordable feast of the working East Ender heading down to Southend on the train. Oral histories recall the shops packed on a Saturday, the marble counters, the steam and the chatter, yet jellied eels could not survive changing tastes and vanishing eel stocks. Today they cling on in a handful of old shops, a relic of a Britain that ate from the water at its feet. Number 20. Pilchards on toast were the cheap, hot lunch that kept the Cornish coast fed through lean years. A tin of Pilchards in tomato sauce, tipped onto thick buttered toast and warmed under the grill, cost only pennies and filled a hungry belly on a blustery afternoon. Every seafront cafe had a stack of tins behind the counter, and the smell of warm tomato and fish drifted out to the prom. The Pilchard had once been Cornwall's silver harvest, hauled in by the ton, and even tinned it carried the memory of the boats returning. Children ate it without complaint because it came hot and quick, and fathers took it with a mug of strong tea after a morning on the beach. As frozen fingers and burger vans took over the seafront, the humble Pilchard slid from the menu, remembered now mostly by those who grew up beside the Cornish sea. Number 19, Welsh rarebit was the cafe snack that turned cheese and bread into something worth ordering out for. A thick sauce of grated cheese, a spoon of mustard, a splash of ale or milk, and a shake of Worcestershire was spread over toast and grilled until it blistered and bubbled golden. It was hot, sharp, and deeply savory. A proper snack rather than a mere sandwich, and it cost only a few pence to serve. Seaside tea rooms from the Welsh coast to the Kentish front kept it on the board for the customer who wanted something warming without the price of a full meal. Diaries recall the smell of grilling cheese filling the little rooms on a wet afternoon, the toast crisp beneath and the topping soft above. It was comfort in its simplest form. As toasties and packaged sandwiches took over, the true rarebit, made fresh in the pan, faded from the counter, another small skill lost to convenience. Number 18. Kippers were the breakfast that announced you were properly at the seaside. Herring split, salted and smoked over oak arrived on the plate golden brown, glistening and fragrant, served with a knob of butter melting into the flesh and a wedge of bread to mop the juices. The boarding houses and front-facing cafes grilled them by the dozen each morning, and the smoky scent drifted up the stairs to wake the guests. A pair cost only a few pence, and for a family away from home, they felt like a treat far grander than the price. The trick was in the eating, easing the flesh from the fine bones, a skill passed from parent to child at the breakfast table. Oral histories recall the smell hanging over whole streets of guest houses on a summer morning. As continental breakfasts and cereal boxes crept in, the grilled kipper retreated. Today it lingers only where a traditional guest house keeps the old smoky ritual alive. Number 17, egg and chips was the honest heart of every seaside cafe menu. A fried egg with a soft golden yolk, a mound of proper hand-cut chips fried in dripping, a slice of bread and butter, and a mug of tea strong enough to stand a spoon in. That was the plate, and for a shilling or two, it fed a working family better than anything the modern retail park can manage. The cafe windows steamed with the frying, the smell of hot fat pulling people in off the cold prom. Children mopped their yolk with chips, while parents savored the simple pleasure of a hot meal cooked by someone else. There was no pretense and no garnish, only good food done well. Oral histories recall these cafes as the beating heart of the front, warm rooms where the whole town seemed to pass through. As chain outlets and frozen fare took hold, the proper plate of egg and chips became harder to find, its simple perfection quietly undervalued. Number 16, beans on toast anchored the cafe menu as the cheapest hot meal a family could buy. A tin of Heinz warmed on the hob, tipped over 2 rounds of buttered toast, and topped with a shake of pepper, it cost mere pennies and arrived in minutes. For a rainy afternoon when the beach was a washout, it was salvation, hot, filling, and instantly comforting. Every seafront cafe kept a wall of tins behind the counter, and the smell of warming tomato sauce meant shelter from the weather outside. Children loved it without argument, and mothers ordering for 4 could feed the lot without breaking the holiday budget. It asked nothing of anyone but a can opener and a grill, yet it satisfied completely. As the seafront filled with pricier fast food, this most humble of orders lost its place of pride, remembered fondly as the meal that rescued 1,000 washed-out afternoons. Number 15, gammon and pineapple was the cafe's idea of glamour, a hot main that felt like dining out. A thick steak of gammon was grilled until the edges caught, then crowned with a golden ring of tinned pineapple and served with chips or peas and a fried egg on top for the truly hungry. The sweetness of the fruit against the salt of the ham was a revelation to families used to plainer fare, and ordering it felt like an occasion. Seaside cafes in the 60s put it on the board as their showpiece, priced a little higher than egg and chips, but worth every penny for the sense of treat. Children eyed the pineapple ring like treasure, and adults tucked in with the pride of a proper meal on holiday. Diaries recall it as the height of cafe sophistication. As tastes moved on and menus were streamlined, gammon and pineapple slipped into nostalgia, a sweet and salty memory of the Seaside's golden years. Number 14, prawn cocktail brought a touch of the exotic to the seafront table. Cold prawns nestled on shredded iceberg lettuce, smothered in a pink Marie Rose sauce of mayonnaise, ketchup, and a hint of Worcestershire, then dusted with paprika and served in a tall glass with a wedge of lemon and brown bread on the side. In the 60s and 70s, it was the height of cafe fashion, a starter that made an ordinary lunch feel like a night out. The prawns were often the small brown sort, sweet and plentiful, and the sauce was made fresh behind the counter. Families splashed out on it as the sophisticated opener to a holiday meal, and children thought the pink sauce the most glamorous thing they had ever seen. Oral histories recall its reign over the coastal menu. As it became a supermarket cliché in plastic tubs, the freshly made cafe version quietly faded, its glass and its lemon wedge folded away into memory. Number 13. Scampi in a basket was the cafe's playful stab at fine dining. Breaded scampi, fried until crisp and golden, arrived heaped in a little wicker basket lined with a paper napkin, a pile of chips beside it, a wedge of lemon, and a pot of tartare sauce for dipping. The basket was the whole charm, a bit of theatre that turned a simple plate into an event, and seaside cafes and their attached bars served it with pride through the 70s. The scampi was sweet and tender inside its crunchy coat, and no one minded that the basket was mostly for show. Families ordered it as a treat, and children fought over the crispiest pieces and the last of the tartare. As chain restaurants churned out limp frozen versions, the proper basket lost its magic, remembered now as a quirky emblem of the British seaside's confident heyday. Number 12. Rock cakes sat on every cafe counter under a glass dome, rough and humble and quietly perfect. A knobbly little bun studded with currants and a shake of mixed spice, cheap to make and quick to bake, it cost only a penny or two and paired ideally with a mug of tea. The name came from the craggy top, not the texture, for a good rock cake was crumbly and light within. Cafe owners baked them fresh each morning, and the smell of warm spice and dried fruit greeted customers at the door. Children chose them because they were the cheapest thing on the shelf, and grandmothers approved because they were honest baking with no airs. Oral histories recall the domed counters lined with them beside the scones and the buns. As packaged cakes and machine-made muffins took over the seafront, the fresh rock cake baked on the premises grew rare, a small casualty of the coast's slow surrender to the supplier's van. Number 11. Eccles cakes traveled from Lancashire to Seaside counters across the land, flaky little parcels bursting with fruit. Rounds of buttery puff pastry were filled with currants, sugar, and spice, the tops slashed 3 times and baked until the sugar caramelized and the pastry shattered at the first bite. Sold too for a few pence, they were the cafe's answer to a sweet craving without the price of a full slice of cake. The filling was dark, sticky, and richly spiced, and the flakes went everywhere, down the front of every child who dared to eat one on the windy prom. Cafe owners stacked them beside the tea urn, and regulars knew to ask for the freshest batch. Diaries recall the war between those who loved the squashed fly filling and those who fled from it. As mass-produced pastries filled the shelves, the proper fresh Eccles cake became a rarity on the coast, its flaky glory now a treat sought out rather than stumbled upon. Number 10. Iced buns were the child's reward at the end of a day on the sand. A soft, slightly sweet finger of enriched dough was topped with a thick lick of white or pink water icing, sometimes split and filled with a smear of cream, and it cost only a penny or two from the cafe counter. Nothing pleased a tired, sunburnt child more than choosing one from the glass case, the icing gleaming under the strip lights. Cafe bakers made them fresh each day, and the soft crumb beneath the crisp icing was a small perfection. Mothers bought them as the treat that ended the outing, and the sticky fingers that followed were part of the ritual. Oral histories recall whole trays of them vanishing on a busy bank holiday afternoon. As chilled cabinets and wrapped pastries took over, the fresh iced bun made on the premises grew scarce, another simple pleasure squeezed out by convenience and the retail park's cold efficiency. Number 9. Bath buns brought a richer sweetness to the seaside tea table. Heavier and stickier than a plain bun, studded with sultanas and candied peel, topped with crushed sugar nibs, and sometimes a sprinkle of caraway, the Bath bun was the cafe's indulgent choice for those with a penny more to spend. Split and buttered, it turned a mug of tea into a proper afternoon treat, and the sugared top crackled pleasingly under the teeth. Seaside tea rooms baked them fresh, and the smell of sweet dough and warm fruit was part of the welcome. Families ordered them for a sit-down rest between the beach and the pier, a moment of comfort in a long day. Diaries recall them as the grander bun, the one you had when you were feeling flush. As uniform packaged pastries replaced the baker's craft, the true Bath bun faded from coastal counters, its sugared crown now a rare sight on the modern seafront. Number 8. A mug of stewed tea and a hot Bovril were the drinks that warmed the bones of every seafront visitor. The tea came thick and dark from a great steel urn that never went cold, poured into a heavy mug and softened with milk and 2 sugars, strong enough to revive anyone off a windy prom. The Bovril, a spoonful of dark beef extract in a mug of boiling water, was the salty, savory cure for a cold afternoon watching the tide, cradled in both hands for warmth. Together they cost only a few pence, and no day at the coast passed without at least one of each. Oral histories recall the comfort of a hot Bovril on a grey November front, the sea crashing beyond the glass. As branded coffee chains marched onto the seafront, the honest urn tea and the warming Bovril quietly lost their throne. Number 7. The cream tea crowned the afternoon with a spread fit for a treat day. Warm scones, split and loaded with a spoon of strawberry jam and a generous dollop of clotted cream, arrived on a plate beside a pot of tea for two, and for a shilling or so a family could feel thoroughly spoiled. The great debate raged then as now, jam first or cream first, and every county on the coast held its own passionate view. The scones were baked fresh that morning, still faintly warm, and the clotted cream was thick enough to stand a spoon in. Devon and Cornwall made it their own, but seaside tea rooms everywhere offered it as the height of a proper sit-down. Diaries recall the ceremony of it, the best china, the moment of calm amid the bustle. As frozen scones and squirty cream crept in, the true cream tea, made with real clotted cream, became something worth seeking out rather than simply expected. Number 6. The Knickerbocker glory was every child's dream made real in a tall glass. Layers of vanilla ice cream, jelly, tinned fruit, raspberry sauce, and a swirl of cream rose up a fluted sundae glass, crowned with a glace cherry and served with a spoon long enough to reach the very bottom. It cost more than most treats, and that was the point, for ordering one felt like the greatest luxury a seaside cafe could offer. Children pressed their noses to the counter to watch it built, and the reward at the end of the beach day was a thing of wonder. The trick was in the digging, working down through the layers to reach the syrup pooled at the base. Oral histories recall the awe of a first Knickerbocker glory, the glass taller than a small child's head. As soft-serve machines and cheap sundaes took over, the towering handmade glory faded, remembered now as the crowning glory of a proper seaside treat. Number 5. The toffee apple was the sticky, dangerous joy of the seafront. A crisp apple on a wooden stick, dipped in a shell of hard red toffee that cracked and shattered at the first brave bite, it cost only a few pence from the stalls near the pier and the fairground. The toffee was made in great bubbling pans, poured and set to a glassy shine, and the smell of hot sugar drifted along the front. Children took their lives in their hands, biting through the shell, and half the fun was the sticky, toffee-smeared aftermath. It was the taste of a treat day, of the fair and the lights and the end of summer. Oral histories recall the queues at the stall and the ruined jumpers that told of a good time had. As wrapped sweets and factory versions took over, the freshly dipped toffee apple, made that day in a copper pan, grew rare on the modern coast. Number 4. Candy floss was pure spun magic on a stick. Sugar poured into a spinning drum came out as a cloud of fine pink threads, wound onto a paper cone into a puff bigger than a child's face, then eaten in dissolving mouthfuls that vanished to nothing on the tongue. It cost only a few pence, and no trip to the seaside fair was complete without one. The machines whirred and spun along the front, and the smell of hot sugar hung in the salt air. Children marveled at how something so vast could shrink to a smear of sweetness in the mouth, and every face ended up dusted pink. It was the very taste of the fairground, of the lights and the noise and the pier at dusk. Oral histories recall sticky fingers and delighted faces. As pre-bagged versions filled the kiosks, the freshly spun cloud, made before your eyes, became a rarer sight on the tourist-crowded front. Number 3. Seaside rock was the sweet you brought home to prove you had been. A long, hard stick of boiled sugar, striped pink outside and running with the name of the town straight through the middle, it was a marvel of confectionery that no child could quite understand. Blackpool made it famous, but every resort had its own, sold from stalls and shop windows piled high in glorious color. The lettering was the wonder, pulled and stretched by hand so the name ran the entire length no matter where you broke it. A stick cost only a few pence and lasted for hours of determined sucking, and it was the traditional gift for the neighbors back home. Oral histories recall the ache of jaws and the sticky joy of it. As mass production and cheaper imports crowded the shelves, the proper hand-pulled rock, made with real craft in a backstreet works, became a fading art on the British coast. Number 2. The 99 cone was the sound of summer itself. A swirl of soft vanilla ice cream piled high in a wafer cone, a chocolate flake pushed in at a jaunty angle, and, if you were lucky, a squirt of raspberry sauce over the top. It was the treat that met you the moment you reached the front. The ice cream vans and kiosks chimed along the prom, and the queue formed the instant the weather turned fair. A 99 cost only a few pence, and no beach day passed without one. The race to eat it before it melted down your wrist, part of the whole experience. Children learned to lick fast and turn the cone, and the flake was always saved for last. Oral histories recall the chime of the van as the true call of the British summer. Though the 99 survives, the honest kiosk version, generous and cheap, has been squeezed thin by the tourist trap prices of the modern seafront. And finally, in first place, fish and chips reigned as the undisputed king of the British seaside. Fresh cod or haddock in a crisp golden batter, a heap of chips fried in proper dripping, a shake of salt and a flood of malt vinegar, all wrapped in newspaper and eaten on the seawall with the gulls wheeling overhead. For a shilling or two, it fed a whole family, and no day at the coast was complete without it. The chippies steamed and hissed along every front, the smell pulling day trippers off the prom, and the queue out the door was a fixture of every summer evening. Children burned their fingers on the first hot chip, and fathers doused the lot in vinegar until the paper turned soggy. It was the taste of the seaside itself, the meal that meant you had truly arrived. Though fish and chips endures, the honest paper-wrapped supper, cheap and generous and cooked with care, has been steadily priced out by the tourist traps that now crowd the coast. Across all 25 entries, from a penny dish of Cockles to the king of fish and chips, these seaside foods tell a story of a Britain that fed itself cheaply, honestly, and with care. What ruined them was never the tide, but the tourist trap, the frozen everything, the plastic menu, and the price that no longer matched the plate. Which of these did your family always order? Tell me in the comments, and let me know which one you would bring back tomorrow.